Howdy. Welcome back to Dion Talk. Hopefully the buzzing goes away. It wasn't doing it for like 4 hours, and all of a sudden it starts out of nowhere. In Germany, the biggest airport closes down in the middle of the night. I did not know that. So you should... Why am I getting feedback? Three mistakes that landlords make, three investing mistakes. These are three that I'm hoping you don't make. One of these is something that came out of a 2-year study that I did. The other two mistakes are these other two mistakes are mistakes that can add decades to your investing if you make these two mistakes. And the reason I want to share these with you is because these seem to be things that people make as mistakes on purpose. Like they choose to do these things, and then they choose to do these things based on advice from other people. Let me know if the buzzing is bothering you, because I don't know why it's still there. I reached financial freedom in less than 10 years and made work completely optional, even though I wasn't starting in a very good position. I did this with buy and hold real estate. I own 16 rental units that produce a little over $17,000 a month in cash flow that I use to basically do whatever I want. I just spent a little over a month in Portugal looking at properties, deciding if I wanted to buy there. I have a list of reasons as to why I decided not to. I actually have an interview with Business Insider I'm doing this Friday as to why I'm not going to be investing there. When I get back, I'm probably taking a trip to California, and then I've got a trip to Thailand. I've got a cruise in September. So the cash flow from my real estate lets me do anything that I want to. And it took 10 years. This doesn't happen overnight, but committing to doing this for 10 years, to having that really slow start that seems to be the thing that stops people, is something that actually the first mistake that a lot of investors make, that you'll actually hear as advice and a goal that people talk about in the financial independence retire early community. This literally is suggested as, this is why you want to invest. This is how you invest. This should be your goal. So if this is your goal, if this is something that you're setting for yourself or something that you've been told by another investor that you should do, rethink this. Because this can stop you in your tracks. So many times when people talk about reaching financial freedom, we say, I have a freedom number. I need to reach that freedom number, which means I need income coming in from a source that I don't have to sell my life for 1 hour at a time, that is more than what it costs me to live every month. And the way people phrase this, the way people say it, is what causes the problem. The first mistake of these three that I'm going to cover that investors make is they say, I want to replace my W-2 income. The first way of looking at this is, that's really not what you need to do to hit your freedom number. While you're working, you have expenses you're not going to have once you retire. Healthcare is the one expense where you're going to cover 100% of the premium instead of probably 5 or 10%, while your employer's been covering the 90 or 95%. That will be your one expense that might go up. But you no longer have to save for retirement. You don't have commuting or travel expenses. You don't have the work expenses of, if you have to work from home, the type of computer you need, the internet, anything that you're going to be using for even a remote job, those expenses can go away. You're going to be taxed differently when you earn your income from your assets than you do from W-2. So your tax bracket usually goes down. With my rental income, as an example, I made over $200,000 in profit last year, and I carried forward a loss. Even though that was actual profit, the way our tax system is set up, if your income comes from a source that is not your W-2, you're going to be taxed significantly less. So that's not even what I'm talking about how this is the first mistake that a lot of investors make. They say, I want to replace my income. How do you do that? How big is that? What is your income? This makes it seem like any deal that you look at, if it isn't big enough, it's not worth pursuing. If your goal is I want to replace my income, and you make $10,000 a month, and you look at a deal that's going to give you $400 a month in cash flow, that seems trivial. It seems really small. Why take all the time, energy, and effort it takes to pursue, find a deal, hunt the deal down, make the offer, negotiate the offer, inspect the offer, pay for the appraisal, close on the deal, manage the tenants for $400 a month if you need $10,000 to replace your W-2? That mentality of saying, I need to replace my W-2 makes the right way of looking at it seem trivial. Instead of replacing your W-2 income, let's look at, how do I add to my income? That way, when you look at that $200, $300, $400 a month in cash flow from the first rental that you're going to acquire, or the house hack that lowers your expenses, and you can add that to your savings rate, it doesn't seem trivial. This is one of the reasons why Michael Zuber, from One Rental at a Time, well, he has over 180 units, has reached financial freedom beyond that, and has been retired now for about 5 years and can do pretty much anything he wants. He doesn't say get to 180 units. He doesn't say reach financial freedom. He just says get to 4. It's attainable. You can process that. When you're starting out, you can see yourself getting to 4. If you can get to 4, even if that's all you do, you'll have a better retirement. Once you get to 4 and you realize I've learned a skill, I might as well continue to use this skill to make it better, you're probably going to add more. Some people will develop that skill and add hundreds of units, like the Lumberjack, or Millennial Mike, or Zuber are going to. And some of you are going to be lazy like me and realize that in my case, the most amount of cash flow from the least amount of units was my goal. Financial freedom happened with 16 units, and I might not even want that many. At some point, I might sell some, pay off debt, increase my cash flow, make more money every month, and have less things to deal with, less properties to manage, maintain, tenants to manage. So that's the first thing. If you're looking at replacing your income, instead of that, think about, how do I add to my income? As you add to your income, eventually you're not going to need your W-2. My last 4 years before I retired, I didn't touch my W-2 income in any way. It just kept adding to the stack for investing in the next asset. That's why I have so much cash stack now for the next property that I really don't want to buy, because I don't want more things to work on, but I'm going to put the money to work somewhere because it makes more sense than having it sit in the bank losing value. So add to your income. Get out of the mindset of I want to replace my W-2. That's too big of an intangible thing to pursue. The second thing, if you're specifically investing in real estate, this is a mistake that I've seen a lot of landlords make, and it makes you fall flat on your face almost every time. You just closed on a property, or you have a tenant moving out of one of your first rentals. The idea of having a vacancy is terrifying. You're paying the mortgage. That's sucks, right? So people will do almost anything to get a tenant quickly. An example is my brother has a rental coming available, and a friend reaches out and says, hey, if you have any rentals available, I have somebody looking for a rental. And let me explain the issue that I have with this. Now, my brother is probably going to rent because it's a friend and he wants to help somebody out. And he's got this big heart that tells me he should use more property management with his rental portfolio. But somebody reaching out and saying, if you have any rentals available, I know somebody who really needs one. That means they hope you're stupid. There are rentals available everywhere. They just want the real, actual market value rent. And they want somebody that qualifies, that has the credit score, has the income, has the eviction records, whatever the landlords are looking for. So if somebody's looking for a rental and they reach out through a friend's network, this is something that I take away from my family. My dad and 2 of my brothers owned residential tree services. And one of my brothers got into logging a bit too. And when you own a service like All Nighter Hider, and can be, works as a handyman, as a contractor, and does these things. If a friend reaches out, this is how you know if it's a friend or not. My family ran tree services. Your family might be in plumbing, electrician. You might run a CDL school and have dump trucks that can haul gravel. Whatever your thing that you bring to the table is from your job. If someone reaches out and says, you own a tree service, we're friends, give me a really good price, that's not a friend. If you really want to support a friend, you call them and you say, you run a business, All Nighter Hider, you run a business, come redo my cabinets and put in the countertops. Let me pay you exactly what you would charge somebody else, and probably let me tip you, because I want my money that I would have spent on some contractor to go to my friend. If you own a tree service like my family did, and a friend reaches out, the people we knew were friends would reach out and say, hey, you own a tree service. Can you do my tree? Give me a regular bid. I'm going to spend this money anyway. I would rather it go to a friend than a stranger. That's what it's like when you own a rental and somebody reaches out and says, if one of your units is available, I know somebody who really needs a rental. Well, that's a red flag. And my brother, especially when it comes to dating, is kind of, I call him the bull, right? Because he just sees a red flag and he charges it. And that's what it looks like in this case. If somebody really needs a rental and you want a tenant, you're probably going to lower your standards, not check. So when you list a rental, every single time, and this is something that Richard Branson said from Virgin Airlines. He said, it's better to have a hole on your team than an a-hole on your team. So you don't want to hire somebody to fill a position at a company just because the position's vacant. You want to screen to get the right employee. You don't want a tenant to fill your property if they don't meet your criteria. If they trigger a bunch of red flags, you should be looking for those, even if you think I might have to pay for a mortgage. Because when you first start out, just like repairs on a property, this feels like something you're paying for. But that's not what's actually happening. When you run the numbers on buying a rental, we calculate a certain amount of money. I do 10% for repairs and maintenance and 5% for vacancy. So 15% when I'm calculating the numbers to make sure I get my yield, 15% is set aside to fill that account to pay for things like on this trip to Portugal. I had a garage motor go out. I had 3 refrigerators fail. So it's just like the time for refrigerators to fail. 2 of them were really old. So I'm kind of glad they did. And I didn't pay for those repairs. I didn't pay for I didn't pay for the labor to go out and do that. My tenants did. Over the last several years, that 15% that's filling that account that pays for repairs, maintenance, and vacancy is the same money that will pay for that vacancy. So you can take the time to screen the right tenant. Don't just I need to have somebody in there because I'm paying it. It feels like you are in the beginning when you have that first year or 2 where you're building that reserve account. But remember, you're getting that 15%, or you could choose 10% or 20% or whatever number you use in your calculations over the next decades with that rental to pay for that expense. The third thing, this is the third mistake before I get to the questions and the comments, and hopefully the Wi-Fi is working good here because it's a closed down airport. I'm surprised it's working at all. An airport that closes down, the largest one in Germany. It's just weird. So I was getting close to retiring. I was getting ready to retire. I was, I had 4 years, hadn't touched my W-2 income for 2 years when I started this study. But I was kind of scared that there were people who used to own rentals and something changed in their life where they no longer own rentals. And I was sitting there thinking, okay, I have 16 rental units. Takes me about 2 hours a month to self-manage them. So for 2 hours a month, I'm making about $17,000 in profit after principal, interest, taxes, insurance, and setting aside for repairs, maintenance, and vacancy. I have this money to do anything I want and go anywhere I want. What could change in my life that might make me go, yep, I don't want to own rentals anymore? So before I retired for almost 2 years, I went and I hunted for people who used to own rentals. And it's actually kind of hard to find them. In this space, this YouTube space, where even the channels that I watch and still take content in myself, it's people trying to grow a portfolio, reaching financial freedom, or sharing, I've reached financial freedom. Here's how I did it. Maybe this is something that can help you, right? So you're interacting with people who understand the power of real estate, who aren't, on the Crash Bros bandwagon, and these are people pursuing rentals. How do you find people who used to own rentals? I wanted to know what they did that made them no longer landlords. And I finally found them. There's a large community of financial independence retire early. There's Choose FI, there's Mr. Money Mustache, there's Paula Pant with Afford Anything. There's like all these groups. And while Paula Pant is real estate, Mr. Money Mustache and Choose FI, they're primarily stocks. Literally in their groups, if you mention anything about real estate, you get ostracized or kicked out. You can actually get kicked out of groups that are on real estate if you say you don't like the strategy that they use. I got kicked out of Burr Invest because I said it might not be the best strategy to start out with, especially when rates are on the way up. So I got kicked out of the group. But in those stock market groups, there are a lot of people who used to own rentals. And there were people who used to own rentals when I was asking that had kind of one-offs. The death in the family, birth in the family, divorce, lawsuit, health concern, some 1 or 2 things that was a very specific thing that made it the right choice to get out of real estate. But the thing that showed up almost every time across the board with every single person that I talked to who used to own rentals, this was the mistake they made, this third mistake. So the first mistake was, and my memory sucks, so I took notes, trying to replace your entire income instead of adding to it, or placing a tenant too fast because you're afraid of having to screen a tenant and hunt for the right one. This third mistake, and this is a mistake that Stephan even made. So if you're watching my content, you're probably on YouTube and you see all these other, meet Kevin, Stephan, and then the one rental at a time community, and the lumberjack landlord, and millennial like we're all kind of talking the same thing. But Stephan started out in real estate. He's an agent. He had inconsistent income when he started, so he started buying rentals because he wanted some consistent cash flow so he could pursue the rentals that he wanted to. Then his YouTube channel blew up, so that's kind of his income. But here's the mistake that Graham made over a 10-year period. He made it so bad that he sold some of his rentals. In the video, he said, I can actually get a better return just putting my money in the bank. And this was before interest rates jumped up to where they are now. The mistake that the investors that used to own rentals that are in the Choose FI group, the Mr. Money Mustache groups, didn't raise the rents. You will hear people say in the FIRE community, you need to replace your W-2 income. They'll say, you don't want a vacancy. Vacancy is you're paying the mortgage. It's too expensive. You will hear them say, don't raise the rents. You'll lose good tenants. So consistently across the board, the thing that made the landlords stop owning properties, that was my fear. If I retire and what could happen in my life that would make me not want to be a landlord anymore, was not raising the rents. If you're familiar with my content, you know that I have a strategy that gets my tenants to ask me to raise the rent. I actually made a course. It's for free. You can get it at diontalk.com/binder. There's a link in the description below. If the one thing that made people stop being landlords was that they didn't raise the rent because they don't want to lose good tenants, and I have my tenants ask me to raise the rent, thank me, that are happy. Happy tenants don't trash your property, and happy tenants don't leave. It made it a lot easier for me when I realized that was the thing that they were doing as a mistake. Made it a lot easier for me to retire and walk away from a good job with a strong suspicion that we were coming into a recession. I predicted when I made a bet with Lumberjack Landlord and Zuber from One Rental at a Time last year, I said there would be a recession in the first quarter. And when we had the negative GDP for those 2 quarters in a row, they changed the definition of recession. So we didn't have it. We had a technical recession. I honestly believed we were going to have one. I still walked away from a job that I liked, heading into a recession that I still expect to happen and be severe, because I have that confidence that the mistakes that investors make aren't going to be the mistakes that I make. So thank you for my intro. I have Millennial Mike will be joining me here as soon as he gets back from, I think, picking up his kid. I'm going to go to the questions. I'm going to go as long as my battery lasts because there's no power at a closed down airport because we can't be inside. This is really weird. If you have a layover in Frankfurt, remember, learn, take note, they close down from 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. So howdy, everybody. And I'll give Mike a second to join in here and get connected to audio and all of that.
What's going on?
I'm just entertaining myself here in an almost empty airport. There's a bunch of other people here who didn't know that it closes down in the middle of the night.
Just all the workers and everybody goes home. And it's the biggest airport in Germany.
Button it up like a closed down mall.
But they trust you guys.
Well, we're inside. We're outside of the airport. So we had to leave the secured area. We're out here where car rentals are, and they're all shut down too. So
nice.
They don't have the city that never sleeps here like we do, I guess.
Well, I mean, none of our airports close down. I mean, like even little airports don't completely close down. That's kind of odd.
No, I have learned a few things on this trip because I had never had a layover here before. I usually go to, South America, Southeast Asia. This was my first trip to the Europa area.
Right.
So howdy, everybody. Financial Fighter, fired Mark. Aloha. Howdy, Marina. Thank you. This is my teaching hat and my don't get sunburned hat when I'm traveling. I'm going to go through these and see if we can, you can't hear any buzzing. Good. It's like a PA system that it hasn't done it in a while. Dividend Dave, howdy. Angel R. Did Dion make a video saying how much cash he has invested? I did. It just came out. Me and Millennial Mike did one. It came out. If it didn't come out, it comes out Thursday. I was going to have it come out today if I couldn't get the live stream to work. So it's either the last one I released or it's the next one that comes out. It's literally covers exactly how much I have invested, because I see so many comments. There's a person who wrote the book, Your Money or Your Life, was doing an interview. And she said, $10 million invested is not enough to retire on. And then I see a lot of YouTube channels that say retired on $500,000. If you take what it's going to take Mike to reach financial freedom based on where he's at now, if you triple where he's at and how much I have invested, together we have about 500,000 invested to generate multiple six figures in income. It's one of the reasons why we chose real estate.
Yeah, we don't want to like spoiler alert that movie too much, but I've stuck on my sticky note from when we did the math on that one. And you don't need to invest a ton with real estate because, well, at least in my case, recycling capital, once that first couple properties, I got the HELOC. That's not money I made from W-2. I'm just recycling and reusing the same amount. So we go into pretty deep detail. That's a good video.
We do. Yeah. And I'm pretty sure because I edited it recently. So it's coming out Thursday at 5 a.m. Pacific. So.
Yeah, I heard you talking about mistakes people make, and Stephan, number one mistake he made, which was not raising rents. This is why I maintain, dude, Stephan is not a good real estate investor. He's not. He bought a bunch of properties in 2009, 10, 11, 12, 13, when things were really, really cheap. He was smart and house hacked. He was very conservative. But he didn't like buy properties based on cash flow. He doesn't talk about that in his videos. He doesn't talk about a cash on cash return. And then he never ever raised rents because, again, he doesn't care about cash flow or cash on cash return. So, and he's had some in the videos he even talks about having the same tenants since day one. They're paying 2012 prices in rent in California. Like, of course he had to sell because property taxes have gone up, values have gone up. Dude, he was probably losing money near the end. If you've got 10-year-old rents and 10 years of appreciation there, for him to have had to force sell out of that stuff, which is, I imagine, what happened, because that was pretty much what he alluded to in his videos. I love Stephan, but he is not the staple for real estate investing, in my opinion.
The way you worded it, you said that he's not a good real estate investor. I think he's a good real estate investor because he capitalized on a crash. He house hacked. He was conservative. I don't think he's the right person to follow for real estate investing advice. Right. So it's not that he's good or bad at it. So if there's anybody watching who's a realtor and you just got your license and you're just trying to start out, Graham had a kind of a genius way of growing his real estate sales. Right. In the first couple of years, he did rentals. He did lease signings, right, to build that client base that in a year or two would become the buyers who would then go and use his service. He generated revenue from rentals to give him the freedom to work for that spiky income that comes from real estate. He wasn't planning on YouTube taking off the way that it did. So it's kind of like, if somebody wins the lottery, are you going to take financial advice from them? Because they can do risky things with to us what might be huge amounts of money, but to them is trivial, and take huge risks that you wouldn't take, or make mistakes like, I don't need to raise the rent because I don't need the money. And my brother is a I want to say not a motivating factor for me, but I look up to him, right? He reached financial freedom. He retired. He's been retired for over 8 years now. He's doing whatever he wants. So I have a lot of respect for him. But one of the things he does is he also has tenants. He's had from like 2004, never raised the rents. Has one moving out. He told me what the rent is. In his mind, he's locked into, he can't raise the rent much from that point, even though area average rents are almost triple what he was getting. He's going to go up about 20% because he just can't go that much. You can't imagine somebody paying that much more, which is why one of the reasons he does a lot of the repairs himself. If he had the cash flow coming in from area average, or even 20 or 30% below area average instead of a third, he'd have so much money. Why would he do the work himself? So as an investor, it isn't your goal to raise the rents as much as possible, but you need to raise the rents enough to be able to run a profitable business, or you won't have the money to take care of the property the way it needs to be taken care of.
I also think I think you need to keep them raised high enough, because if you ever go to sell, dude, one of the biggest red flags I look for is when I look at a listing, 2-unit, 3-unit, 4-unit building, and I look at the rents, what it's rented for. I'm like, this thing should be rented for $1,100 per unit, and it's rented for $500. That's a huge red flag. You're irresponsible as the landlord, because now I'm sitting here saying to myself, okay, great. I'm immediately buying this property at horrible cash flow, or stepping into an eviction, or best case scenario, maybe I can binder strategy them closer to market. But like it's just downright irresponsible to not at least keep rents within like 20% of what fair market is, because you're inhibiting your ability to sell it. You're inhibiting your ability to properly operate the property. This is why slumlords end up the way they are, because of rent control. They don't have the means and ability to bring in enough money to actually take care of the property and repair it. Repair costs go up because of inflation too. So now I understand I'm just sounding like a hard ass who's just saying you got to raise your rents, but when they're critically below market value, like your brother's, who's apparently it's 3 times below where it should be, that's way too far down there. That's not good.
Well, and here's the problem that I hope when I'm talking to him would eventually register. He's fine. He has these are paid off properties. He used a HELOC to buy them, did the repairs himself. So he has the cash flow, even if taxes and repair maintenance costs go up, right? But eventually he's going to pass away. His kids are going to inherit this. Neither one of his kids are into rentals. So they're probably going to sell. It might even be sold by probate. I think he has a trust, so it's probably going to go a little better than probate. But when they go to sell, it's going to cost his kids hundreds of thousands of dollars, because 3 of his rentals are in California, where there is rent control. And if you're at a third of, or even half of what rent should be, anybody who buys it in a rent control state is not going to pay you what it's worth. So he's taking that money from the next generation. Yeah. He's also here, probably going to watch this later and punch me in my sleep. Brian Beck, howdy. I thank you for the super chat. It's much appreciated. Hopefully, if there's a question, I don't miss it. I will look. Lauren, howdy. 6 months as a member. I appreciate that. Check out Nomad Capitalist. He works with wealthy people to decide where in the world you should move to and or invest. Go where you will be treated best. I watched one of Nomad Capitalist videos on, I think it was the top 15, or it was either top 12 or top 15 countries to move to retire. First 2 he suggested. One was Emirates, so Dubai, right? So I don't want to live where there's Sharia law. 2, the next one was Indonesia, where intimacy outside of marriage is a crime. I don't think I watched the rest of the video, but maybe he had some better suggestions, because I thought Portugal was a good place too until I got here. But thank you for that, Lauren. That is a good suggestion. I will have to probably go back, get past the first couple of barriers that I ran into on his video. Adam, howdy. Thank you for the super chat. I hope everything is having a good day. I hope you are too. And Lauren says, as Zuber says, cash flow over everything. I even bought that t-shirt from the merch. Nice.
I've got it too.
I think I've seen you in a couple of videos with it. Let me know if I miss any questions from the super chats, please, Mike.
Yeah. Adam Calhoun, did you get his? Yeah.
I got his super chat. I missed if there was a question.
No, there wasn't a question. He was just saying,
okay.
What up?
No, I appreciate that. So I'll go up here and look at questions really quick.
You gotta promote our little 4-man REI Avengers that we're doing in a couple weeks.
Yeah, that's on the 21st. It's right after we get back from the event in Portland on Saturday. So on the 20th, the Northwest Action Summit is happening in Portland. That's literally Friday night till Saturday night. It's an all-day event on Saturday. Cody and Christian are going to be there. The real Jesse, there's like a list of people. I didn't see that ADU guy. Is he coming? Did you see it on the list?
I thought he was. Yeah, I swear I saw him.
So he was there the year before. I hoping he's there again.
Yeah.
I've talked with Derek several times. So I think it's going to be a great event. My brother's going to come, get to see what it's like. We're both presenting there. And then the next day we have the 4 REI Avengers on one rental at a time, a 3-hour thing where literally live like this in Zoom, but everybody gets to be in the Zoom if they want to, is going to get to hear us argue. Because we don't all agree on things. We have different ways of looking at it. Yeah, so I'm actually looking forward to that because I like questions when people ask a question and we have completely different answers.
Yeah,
Not completely, but
we'll have an opportunity to be a little more open with what we talk about because, you know, we can talk a little bit more like real numbers and addresses because we won't necessarily have to worry about people looking up our properties. We can give a little bit more of our bombastic, over sensationalized opinions without worrying about people hating on it. So it is a private event, Zoom, it's invite only, it's capped. They're not letting any more than 100 people buy into it. So if you just go check it out on Zuber's thing, you'll see I don't remember what he's charging for it, but it's like $50 or something like that.
no, I'm looking forward to it. Maybe this place closes too.
Oh no.
If all of a sudden I go away, it's because they killed the Wi-Fi. There's curtains coming down. It's curtains. The wealth building journey. Howdy. In listen only mode, YouTube Premium is absolutely worth it while finishing up errands. YouTube Premium is worth it for the close the app option. All-nighter hider, I don't enter. Somebody's buying a bike inside a building. Nice.
Yeah, they rode past you already.
Okay. I want to see a unicycle next. All-nighter hiders packing for the flight to Orlando. Nice. Nomad Capitalist is a great YouTube channel. Agreed. Yeah, this is one of the ones I watch, so. This coming recession is going to be quite severe, the wealth building journey. And we've talked about this a few times. The thing that I'm most concerned about is the people who only have one source of income. If your income is your job and a recession happens, and the only way that you've been making money is by selling your life 1 hour at a time, what do you do when nobody's buying? Instead of having multiple sources of income, rentals that are spread out with tenants from different sources, military, Section 8, working or retired, rents go up during a recession. It's I don't want to say it sucks to benefit from it, but we've literally planned on investing for recessions. And it is going to be, my opinion, who knows what's going to actually happen. The crystal ball doesn't work for any of us. It's going to be severe. I'm hoping people start getting different sources of income. Lauren, yeah, I used to live in Germany. Everything closes early. Yeah, so in Portugal, everything closed in the afternoon from like 2 to 6:30. There were no restaurants open. There were, if you were in a really touristy area, there could be a couple that would be open, but for the most part, everything closed down. And then bars are open till sunup, so that was okay. Tony Carr, howdy. Derek, howdy. Number 4, landlords quit after one bad tenant. They really do, especially in the beginning. If you have 1 or 2 rentals and you have a really bad tenant experience, that's either 50% or 100% of your experience. When you have 10 or 15, and most of them are cash flowing. So here's an example, and I did this in one of my very early videos. Some people prefer to buy multifamily versus single family. And they'll say it like this: if I have 10 units and 1 is empty, 9 of them are paying. The money that it takes to get the 10 unit wouldn't get you just 1 single family house. You'd have 5 to 10 single family houses. And if 1 was empty, the rest are paying. But when you have more than those first 1 or 2 rentals, bad tenants aren't as much of a nuisance. You've gone through a couple of evictions, Mike, and you're like, yep, it's just, that's the cost of doing business. That money's going to go for it. But I have these other rentals that have, what do you call it? Proof of concept. Good tenants in place, generate revenue. rinse and repeat. Take the bad apple, take the expenses when they come. That was a good one. Movie Hipster. I like it. Wealth building journey. Recycled capital is a powerful force multiplier. I don't want to spoil the upcoming video. Yep. I don't want to spoil it either. And this is one of those things where if you come to the thing where the 4 REI Avengers are talking, all three, Mike, Matt, and Mike, have recycled capital. One of the reasons why I get more than $1,000 per unit in cash flow is because I haven't. No HELOCs, no cash outs, no 1031s, nothing. Save a down payment, buy the property, refinance when rates get better. That is one thing that had a positive impact. But I've never pulled money out. I've never added debt to an existing asset. And then you add the element of time, and you can, but I can live on $17,000 a month. I can live on $3,000 a month probably, but 17 means I'm saving 10 to 13,000 a month, even with trips like this. I mean, my brother and I were going through the math. We're both coming home with over $10,000 more than what we had when we left. We need to travel more. That was his genius statement. And I was like, I agree.
More while you're traveling.
We are trying. Like
you need to get, you know what you need to do? You used to hit Matt up with the Pink Panther meme all the time, but now you need to get a freaking Lamborghini before it. Just imagine what that will do to his ego.
I would, but I can I get it on like 44-inch mutters because in Washington, a low car, you can't see Lambo. Anything. Get a lifted Lambo
with mud flaps.
Right.
Damn, that would look good.
Laura, howdy. My duplex is in Melbourne. I love Melbourne. It's a beautiful beach town. Going to retire there. I would love to meet a community member if your schedule allows it. No pressure. I think that was probably towards All Nighter that was going there, or Dividend Dave that's around there. Angel R, I was telling All Nighter. Angel R, hey Dion, please keep doing more of those traveling videos. I love your perspective on embracing life now instead of just piling up units. Keep inspiring us. I plan on doing that. The goal, I think the strategy was go to Thailand when we get back, but I think we're moving that to the winter. So I'm not sure where I'm going to travel next. I know I have this in September, I'll be in the Mediterranean, but for the winter, I think I'm going to go to Thailand. I will definitely be doing videos from Thailand. The last time I was in Thailand, I didn't have a YouTube channel yet. Wealth building journey. Dion's right. Anchoring bias is a real thing. As Dion mentioned, inflation doesn't care what the initial rent cost basis was. Exactly. I've said that before, I think, and if I can remember, if my memory will work, the way I worded it was what somebody was paying for rent last year has nothing to do with what the rent is going to be this year. Area average rents, set rents. Oliver, howdy. Derek, Dion and Magic Mike. 42 and my real estate partner is 60. We have 1.5 million portfolio of multifamily. I have only 2 single family houses on my own. Would you guys focus on partnerships or acquiring outside of it? Mike, I don't want to pounce on that. I want you give you a chance to answer before people hear what my response is.
Yeah, I mean, that's a little tricky because he's asking, how do you buy outside of a partnership? Like just buy by yourself? And that's the way.
He's saying, what would you focus on? Would you continue to grow the partnership or would you be buying outside of the partnership?
Okay, I got you. All right. So, I mean, like if it's not broken, why fix it? Is it working for you to buy in your partnership? Do you guys have a reason to split and go your separate ways? I mean, are you protected with an LLC and you're both 50-50 owners on it? You know, I mean, if there's nothing that was pushing me to separate, then I probably wouldn't be looking to do it unless somebody, you know, didn't want to move into a different market, or maybe they didn't want to continue growing, or, you know, any number of different reasons that you could be parting ways. But I just did my first private money deal where I brought a partner in with me that was not the bank for the first time. And now I have 2 more people who are lined up that also have a substantial amount of money they want me to invest. And now I'm suffering from success because I'm like, I just got to find the right deal and there's more and more people forming in the queue behind. I'm like, oh crud, I got to find more deals so I can actually invest this money. So, I mean, I'm very pro partnering and I'm very pro doing deals on your own. So I guess I would say if there was a reason for you to do it by yourself, like you would get a better return or you'd get better cash flow, or you've outgrown the partnership for some reason, then yeah, I mean, there's great ways to invest on your own. And if not, dude, keep playing the same golden oldies, man. If it works, it's right.
So I agree with Mike. I don't think it's mutually exclusive. You don't have to choose one over the other. It's kind of like I have 3 different searches set up with multiple agents. 1, I might do a bird project. 2, I might buy a primary house if it has an ADU and I can make money out of it. 3, I might buy another small multifamily. I might start investing in Gary. I might have all these searches set up, whichever best deal pops up. And actually, Mike, a really good duplex popped up in Washington. So I am going to take a look in the next couple of days. And if I don't go for it, I'm going to send it to you. I think this is, it's like even with current 7.5% interest rates and 20% below area average rents, it's about a 14% cash on cash return in Washington as it sits. Nice. So as a house hack, it would work. As an investment, it would work. From the MLS with a conventional loan. Yeah. So I'm not picking one over the other. I'm not prioritizing one over the other. I'm going, which best deal pops up? So if you and your partner run across a deal that makes sense for the both of you, great. If you also could buy properties on your own, that doesn't take away from the partnership. It might use some of your capital for a period of time, but which one's going to have the best ROI? So yield, stability. No one outside of the relationship between you and your investing partner understand what the timeline is, what your goals are, what their goals are. So pursue both and be transparent. Alyssa, howdy. Tim Crawford, every time you hit the like button, an angel gets its wings. I totally agree. To and Fro Global, howdy. Howdy, Leah. Love your real estate content. As you know, I'm curious to hear where you think you'll invest internationally since the grumpy Portuguese weren't neighborly enough. Yeah, so it's a lot more than that too. It's also the sketchy laws here that I just know I would be the one that got busted.
Doing what, Dion? Sketchy laws for what there, buddy?
Didn't I tell you? Did you not hear about that?
No.
Okay, so the Cliff Notes version. I went to licensed and unlicensed agents here for real estate. Yep. A licensed one gets 5% and unlicensed one takes 4% commission. So there's a little bit of a motivator to go not licensed. Maybe. Both sets of them said, when you buy a property here, the seller says to the government how much the price was. Like when you buy a car in the United States. Exactly. You just say, oh, the transmission didn't work and it was a gift, so I'm going to pay minimum taxes.
Right.
So, right, yeah, that would be a crime, and if you get caught, you're going to probably pay a fine. But here you're talking tens of thousands of dollars.
Right.
And it took me less than, I think, 30 seconds to realize exactly how you would catch somebody in this situation. Mm-hmm. The agents get a 5% or a 4% commission. So if I worked for the tax revenue service of Portugal, I would just go and say, okay, well, what did you guys report? Okay, great. Now, what did these agents get paid? Oh, hey, look at this difference. Wow. You, Mr. American person, let's go to jail. And while jail is the ultimate house hack, right, it is not my retirement plan. Immediately jail. Yes, that's what would happen. I would be the one to win the lottery on that. So that was one reason. The other one is, you're right. They weren't very neighborly. I was a little bit of shock because I wasn't expecting it. So if you come here and you're expecting this, you might have a better experience. But the Portuguese people just celebrate sadness. They have a word for it. It's Saudade, saudade, to embrace the longing, right? To whatever it is. So they don't make eye contact. They don't talk to you. And if they are sitting close to you and you talk to them, they just stare at the wall really quick, like you don't exist. I was going to overshare, but I don't know. It was too much of an overshare. You can get people to talk to you here if you have the superpower that my brother does. I think I missed a super chat because I see it popped up there.
Yeah, we just got one from Tony Carr. He says, Dion and Mike, what is your biggest challenge today in real estate investing in each one of your markets? You first, Dion.
Okay. My biggest challenge in my markets is choosing between deals because I'm not in a rush. So I've found a few deals and I make offers where if I was still trying to grow cash flow and add units, I might have pursued them more vigorously. But since I'm just adding units because I want to put money to work, my challenge is if I buy this duplex, then I'm not going to buy a primary home for another couple of years. So it changes my life plans. If I buy a primary, then I'm not going to be investing, which really doesn't impact me. But it's choosing the best deal, choosing the market. It isn't finding the deals. I'm finding deals on the MLS that I'm making offers on. I could have gotten a couple with a little more aggressive offers, but I'm looking forward, right? I kind of have the Michael Zuber problem of only great deals, right? And I hesitate to say that because don't compare first couple of years to after 10 years, right? Where you have financial freedom. You don't need to put your money to work unless it's a great deal. None of my deals I think were great deals when I bought them. I was shooting for a 10% cash on cash return. My best was a 17. And I think when I hear, lumberjack landlords say, well, I've got these ones that are 25 and 30% return, and the next one's probably only going to be 20. Some of those sound like great deals. So now I'm struggling with what is the best great deal to go and which strategy do I want to use? Because I can do BRRRR, all cash, multifamily, or primary. That's what I'm struggling with, is choosing what to do.
I think probably for me, it's a lack of inventory. It's killing me. I can find a lot of great deals in the single family house space, but I don't want to do more single family houses because 2, 3, 4 unit buildings cash flow way better. And so I'm trying to find just 2, 3, 4 unit buildings. And there's a tiny, tiny inventory for it out there in Northwest Indiana. And I look at all of the cities in all of them. And it's frustrating because it's like, there's 300 houses and there's 20 multi-unit buildings. And of those 20, 15 of them have been on there for a year. So you really have 5 that are kind of coming and going. And so it's annoying because I want more of a selection to look at. After that problem, the lack of inventory, is probably lending. Lending sucks. I don't look at a single deal as if I was going to get a conventional loan on it because they're not going to work at a 7.5% interest rate. It's not worth my time. So that's where I came up with my creative partner with private money to do the BRRRR strategy. And it's going to be spread out over a 5-year period. I'm calling it the slow burn method, which means we're 6 months out from BiggerPockets stealing that term. Anyways,
3 weeks, like the thumbnails.
Fudge. Oh, I'm supposed to make one for Zuber too for our event. Thank you for reminding me. But yeah, lending is trash. So that means you got to be more creative with your financing. Not the end of the world. It's obviously harder to make deals that would have worked a year ago at this exact price. Everything would have worked with a 3%, doesn't work with a 7.5%. So that's frustrating. And then just a lack of inventory. It's like, man, I wish that I lived in Dover, New Hampshire, where every single property out there is like a 5-unit building. And you're like, dang, there's a lot of multi-units out here, Matt. I can see why you've been cleaning a house out here for 20 years. That's a good strategy.
Nice. Well, hopefully you get that worked out, and you might have to expand the market. Like you do. You were looking in Hammond, right? It's like outside of Gary.
No, yeah. I look in every single city in all of Northwest Indiana. So East Chicago, Hammond, Morelville, Griffith, Michigan City, Gary, all of them. But still, there's just not that many. It's very frustrating.
Derek did a super chat. I appreciate that. And has a question here. Mike, have you considered applying to be on any of the BP BiggerPockets podcasts?
They don't like me. They'll steal stuff from me, but no. I have applied. I have applied both through their website, never got a response. I've made a video submission, put it on my YouTube channel, never got a response. I've had people who have been on BiggerPockets before, like you, tag me in an email with somebody who's like higher up there, never got a response. I had that ADU guy tag me in an email with the Real Estate Rookie podcast, and they responded saying that they'd get back to me, and they never got back to me. So I don't think they're a big fan of me, which is fine.
How they pick their guests is baffling, right? I mean, so just before me, it was, when I was on there, it was Matthew McConaughey, Hakeem Velez, Robert Kiyosaki, right? And then I'm like, me, and I'm like, okay, so you just had all of these people on, and then I'm over here. Okay, I've got, like, at the time, I think I had 14 rentals, and
Nice.
I was still working my job, and so how they just picked, and I actually applied to be on the rookie show when they put me on the OG show. And then second half of Derek's question is, did going on the OG show bring any value to me? Bring value. I think it helped me network. I was answering questions in the BiggerPockets Facebook group. I still do. I still try to answer as many questions as if they apply to anything I have knowledge on. I don't just answer random, because there's a lot of stuff that I don't know. But if it is something that I do know, LLC question comes up. If rent questions come up, if getting started questions come up, I will jump on those. And I think I've gotten to interact. I was a guest host on the BiggerPockets Money podcast with Mindy Jensen. I've got to talk with Jay Scott and Ashley Kerr. I became a teaching assistant for the BiggerPockets boot camps. I got to learn a lot doing that, meeting a lot of people. So it's really helped me network. And like Mike said, we've all tried to get other people, Lumberjack, Mike, Zuber used to write for them. But their selection process it's a business, right? They're trying to grow a channel. So they're looking at what will bring in the most views. And sometimes that isn't what would be the most helpful, right? If you're trying to invest in real estate, what does Matthew McConaughey say? What does he tell you when buying your next rental? Hey, you need motivation, you need whatever, and it brings in a new bit of audience. But getting in people like Mike that invest at a distance, that do it while working, an actual blue collar job, because the collar's blue, would have, I think, value. But someone there might not see that that's a way to grow the channel.
I'm more conspiracy theory than that. I think that they don't want to push their viewers away to someone else, because I think that I have made the comment that the one rental at a time family group of content creators, you, me, Lumberjack, some of those people, I think that we do a very good job. And I see this comment echoed all the time. One of the things I do for Zuber is I go through his comment section and I prune out the best questions from that comment section. And then once a week we get together and I do a live Q&A on the spot. I read them, like the hate comments. I read them the happy comments. We pick the best ones. So I look through all the comments on the obscene amount of videos that he produces. And there's an awful lot of, I'm so glad I found you guys. I'm transitioned from BiggerPocket. You provide way more value. It's way more transparent. It's way more real. There's a lot less vague generalizations. You guys give real numbers. You're more relatable. I see that all the time. And I think that they would be very foolish, because you said as a business, would be very dumb business move to say, hey, all of our loyal followers, check out these guys that do it better for cheaper, more consistently. Go watch them. That's not a smart business move. So that's one of the reasons why I think maybe. But hey, I'm just a conspiracy theorist.
Yeah, I'm still going to keep pushing for you to get on there. I go up here and make sure I'm not missing any questions. Adam Calhoun signed up for the Avengers Zoom call. Awesome. Looking forward to seeing you there.
Nice.
Lane, howdy. What are your thoughts on turnkey investing? Mike, did you consider it prior to investing in Gary? You actually started with a turnkey investment in Gary.
I did. Yeah. Yeah. I guess so. Yeah. Maybe this individual hasn't heard. Yeah. So I 100%, I recommend starting with a turnkey property or even a turnkey provider. I think if you're going to start investing at a distance, it's very attractive. You probably live in a very expensive market like I do in Seattle, and the numbers don't make really great sense unless you're house hacking like Dion. So you want to invest at a distance. You don't know anybody. You don't have contractors. You don't have probably not a relationship with anyone, even a property manager yet. So you're starting from scratch. So I would say start as close to the finish line as you possibly can. And if you start with a BRRRR project, something that you're going to have to remodel starting day. I mean, it's like looking at it. That's like running a mile-long race, dude. Try to run the 100-yard dash instead. You're a lot closer to the finish line with a fully turnkey property, sometimes with a tenant already in it, provided it's a good tenant. And that can be your first property. Then as you manage that thing for the next 6 months to a year, you develop the relationship with a property manager. You have a couple minor repairs. You figure out how to get the landscaping and the snow removal done if those things weren't taken care of. You figure out how to pay your taxes. You know, if you're paying your taxes or through a lender, sometimes lenders collect, sometimes you have to pay manually. So you get all of those systems and processes in place. And now if you want to take the 200-yard dash or a quarter mile or something, now you can maybe work a little bit harder because you're a little more prepared for it. So I'm very pro starting with a turnkey property or turnkey provider.
For me, there's two versions of turnkey investing. One is rent ready or already occupied. It's basically turnkey. You buy the property, it's ready to go. Or turnkey through a turnkey company. When Mike started investing in Gary, he had Mark Matsky investing there, and he watched him for a period of time to make sure that Mark had this figured out, had the trusted boots on the ground, developed a relationship. Then Mike went, met the guys, virtually or whatever, invested in his turnkey property. I'm not going to say anything that would get me sued. So I'm going to talk about a hypothetical story. Let's say somebody used to be a news anchor. Hypothetically, they get into real estate. So they start an investing company and a YouTube channel, and they help people buy turnkey properties. And then they grow a company that has kind of a down chain. They have agents working for them. They grow a company that's doing these things for turnkey investing. And somebody in their chain was unethical, hypothetically, allegedly, and sold vacant lots and that didn't have houses on them as turnkey investments. And then that person who used to be a news anchor had to move to Portugal to get out of the country to avoid whatever was happening with that. So you might know who I'm talking about, hypothetically. Verify through trusted sources anything that you're investing in at a distance, even turnkey. Make sure the company has been in existed for a long time, has good reviews. Maybe investors who've used their services before you put your money at risk. That would be my hesitation for it. An example is if I invest at a distance and I want to go turnkey, I'm going to use the Olsen Group because of your experience with them, Mike, and Matsky's experience with them. I met them in person. They actually moved to live in the town that they are flipping. They flipped 300 houses there already. That's how much vetting I would do before I would put my money into a turnkey operation.
Yeah. You know who they just hired? They hired Angelo.
Oh, nice.
Yep. Yeah. He's
Nice.
now their managing broker or whatever. They liked him so much. So
Cool. All he needs to do now is start a house hack.
yeah, he'll be good.
You just saw a bike fly by. Yeah, there's random. Thanks, Angel. Swiper the Fox. Howdy. How would you invest if you had a HELOC of 200,000, 60K in a 401k, and 70K in an RSU? I'll let you go first.
What's the RSU?
Good question. That's why I was going to let you go first.
Retirement savings something? Yeah,
RSU, I'm going to have to Google it because there's too many acronyms in the world for me to guess.
All right. Well, you do RSU, I'll talk first. So immediately you've got three different sources of income. What does it cost you to get at that money? Probably, because I don't know what an RSU is, probably the HELOC is the easiest money to get at. Might be the cheapest money too. If you pull that money out of that 401k, you're going to pay a huge penalty, a 10% penalty plus whatever you got to pay in taxes. So you're looking at like 30 to 40% of that money coming out. And then I don't know if there's something similar with the RSU, but if there is, and the HELOC is the best and easiest way to get your money out, then that's probably what I would do. And that's exactly what I have done. I have a old 401k from like years ago, and I have a Roth IRA that I contribute to this day. And I don't touch any money in those because of all the difficulties of getting it out. Now, Dion had the wonderful opportunity of pulling money out during the pandemic when it was like no penalty. You could pull it out, no penalty. That might change it. If that ever comes again, maybe my answer changes. But right now I've used a HELOC to buy my last 3 rental properties. I did the burst strategy on all 3. I'm midway through the 3rd one right now. And I just did a whole video detailing all of the ins and outs and the money and the finances of doing the HELOC, because the most important thing you need to remember when using a HELOC is you want an exit strategy, because that HELOC is subject to variable interest rates. The payments on that thing is going to be changing, and you want to try to lock those payments in. So the beauty about the BRRRR strategy is that you're using the HELOC short-term, a variable interest rate, payments fluctuating, but you're buying and remodeling the property. But eventually you're going to convert that variable rate debt to fixed rate debt in the form of a cash out refinance. Once the property's done being remodeled, then you pay off your HELOC and you have fixed rate debt. That's exactly what I did. Or the other strategy, which is what I did on the triplex, still the BRRRR strategy, but I bought it using the money from the HELOC. And I immediately converted it to fixed rate debt by bringing in a private investor after I closed on it to pay me all the money back I took out of my HELOC. So I could pay the HELOC off, get rid of the variable rate debt, and fix my payment to the private investor for the next 5 years. So there's a couple of different methods. I'm very pro using a HELOC. I think it's a great strategy. It'll supercharge your ability to invest faster, but it's a more advanced strategy. I wouldn't do it on your first deal. I would make sure that you have systems and processes in place so that if the numbers don't work out, it costs more in repairs. It took longer in repairs. The interest rates suck worse than they used to. It didn't appraise for as much as I wanted it to. There's so many things that can go wrong. You want enough rentals as a foundation so that you can cover the costs of you screwing up, because you will, or just something will happen, will be wrong. So great strategy, but be careful. It's a little bit more advanced.
Okay. So the question was phrased, how would you invest? All right. So I'm going to say how I would invest. And then I'm going to say why, if the person I'm talking to might not want to do what I did or would do what I would do now. I would empty out all of those and put the money to work in real estate, because it's not my first, second, or third deal, because that's when you're going to make most of your mistakes. So I'm going to make an assumption. And remember, anytime you make an assumption, you make an ass out of you, an umption. So if you're asking this question, I'm assuming you don't have any rentals yet. The first 1 or 2, maybe even 3 deals, you're probably going to make your biggest mistakes. So I wouldn't have a HELOC. I wouldn't put my home at risk on a rental where I'm probably going to make my mistakes. The HELOC has an adjustable rate. If you're going to use your HELOC, can you pay it off before the rate adjusts? If you can't, we have no guarantee that in 2 years, interest rates aren't 25%. There's nothing that says that can't happen, right? Logic says it can't happen, but it's not factual. That's hoping. It could be 10%. It could be 12%. I mean, Mike started 2 BRRRR projects and when interest rates were 3 and wrapped them up when they were at 6.5, right?
I got 7s, over 7s.
Right. Yeah. So that can happen. And if you have a HELOC where rates can adjust and you can't pay it off in time, maybe you want to do a cash out refinance, but you probably have good interest rate on your current mortgage, so you don't want to touch it. So you want to do a second mortgage. So it's fixed rate, long-term debt to put that money to work. Again, not on your first or second or maybe even third deal. The 401k, I probably wouldn't pull it out and put it to work on those first few deals, because you're going to have the taxes and the penalty and then put the money to risk. The RSU, if you've met all of the conditions, if it is what I'm even assuming it is, or you have a restricted stock, something where your company gives you this much stocks, if you've either worked there so long or you've attained a certain number, or whatever the deal is for that to be your money, you don't have the penalty, you'll have the taxes. I'm a little more willing to put that at risk than a retirement account that you have put money behind a paywall, or the equity in the place that you live. And remember, anytime somebody talks about HELOCs, cash out refinance, or the word equity, it means right now you have a HELOC of 200,000, right? But you haven't used it. So there isn't $200,000 worth of debt on your existing asset. But when you take the money out, that's what you're doing. You're adding the debt to your existing asset. So you're going to add that expense to the place that you're living at. The investment needs, this is the first question before you decide how you're going to use the money or what you're going to do, is, do you have confidence that you'll be able to find a deal that justifies however it takes to buy the deal and pay off the debt that you're either emptying out your 401k, so you lost the taxes, you lost the penalty, or you borrowed against your 401k, so you've got interest against that, or you have the HELOC, which has interest and an adjustable rate, so you have a ticking time bomb there. It's not the answer that you're going to want to hear. So what I would do now in my current position is I would empty out those. I actually have, I don't know, like $12,000 in my 401k because I emptied it out in 2020, but it's built up a little since then because I was contributing for the match. I'm going to empty it out this year and put it to work on a rental. It just makes more sense than putting it behind that paywall. I will happily pay the taxes on it to take it out and put it to work. But when I was starting out, I had money in a retirement account. I didn't touch it. I used it as a reserve, right? So your money in your 401k as you're saving, you might tell a lender to satisfy the lender's requirement for reserves that you have that much money in a retirement account. 50% of that retirement account will count as a reserve. Don't use your HELOC as a reserve, because the economic event that causes you to need to use the HELOC to cover a problem is probably going to be the thing that makes the bank turn it off. And this is actually something that I learned recently about anchoring. And I'm going to be making a video on this too, that often the first time you hear something, it's really hard for you to change your mind. An example is my brother used a HELOC to buy all of his properties. Used the HELOC, pay it off, used the HELOC, pay it off, did all the work himself. At some point in the beginning of his investing, a lender said, you have to be really careful with this loan though, because the bank can call it at any minute. So they use the term, they can call it at any minute. So if you talk to anybody else about calling a loan, what does that mean? You have to pay it all back. It's not actually what happens. They don't call what you owe. They terminate your ability to borrow more than what you have currently out, right? So they can call the loan by closing it, is what the lender really meant. So my brother, for a couple of decades, one of the reasons why he kept calling me a moron as I was investing and getting in mortgages is he absolutely had the belief, right, which is justifiable, because when you hear it for the first time from a trusted source, the lender he was working with, that a bank can call your loan any day for any reason. So if that was factual, nobody would invest in real estate. A HELOC can be closed, but a mortgage, a 30-year fixed rate debt mortgage, can't be called. Commercial loans can be called because of your loan reevaluation period and not hitting your net operating income that they require. So there are things to know, but so you need to research these kind of things. When you're looking at how do you invest, those first few years, Swiper the Fox, it's going to be slow. Save a down payment, house hack if you can, buy the rental. It's not everyone, but so many people want that. How do I do this in like 2 years? I hate my job and I want to quit in 2 years. I want to start today, quit in 2 years. These are my options. How do I put it to work? Basically, it's going to take a couple of years to stabilize your income to qualify for a lot of the loans that you're going to get from lenders, and learn how to screen tenants, screen a property manager, understand how to maintain your property. Like, there is kind of a learning curve to being a landlord that takes time. And you have some good options there. I wouldn't risk them early in the beginning. Don and Bev, howdy. Thank you. Tony, howdy. Captain Sags. I better see Mike at the meetup tonight in Tacoma.
Whoops. I got my son. I got nowhere to put him, man. Sorry. What happens if you're a single father?
Yep.
And I got to clean my rifles and stuff today because I got a SWAT thing at 3 a.m.
All-nighter hider, rents going up as a market force. Landlords just ride that force like those bikes behind me. Yes, exactly. I want to make a video, and I actually mentioned this to my brother the other day, and he said, "Ooh, be careful, it sounds kind of cocky, and if you're cocky, you're going to scare people away." So I need to figure out how he got that out of this statement. I want to make a video on how, and how do I say this without demonetizing the channel, how COVID made me rich. Actually, it's probably the reason I was able to retire. One of the biggest contributing factors, because we invest like we're expecting black swan events, recessions, pandemics, stock market crashes. So when they happen, we actually benefit from them. Howdy from DMV. Is that Brian? Spend the money to sit at the table. There you go. Sure. Okay, so some answer to the questions there in the chat. I appreciate that. Here's the link for the event on the 21st. Thank you. The wealth building journey. Thank you very much. I wish I had pictures of it saved. I had a truck, a Dodge pickup that I put over 400,000 miles on and sold because I painted it black with fluorescent green splatter paint all over it. Inverted one of the leaf springs. The license plate was the tilt. 400,000 miles on it, and somebody bought it because it looked cool. I could definitely pull off a lifted Lambo. So 22 inch, I want 44 inch mutters. I mean, like rope ladder to get in it. Jimena, hola. Looking forward to the travel videos. I just have to figure out where to go. I am not back yet. I'm on my way back. I'm actually in Germany at, I didn't know they closed, but a huge airport that just closes down in the middle of the night. So I'm at the bike lane at the airport. Absolutely. Keith, any questions I'm missing here, Mike?
I mean, I'm scrolling right along with you.
Okay.
I don't think you've missed anything, but we're still going down.
Here's one from the Duchess. Dion or Mike, do you have any concerns about state or local governments making crazy rules that could hurt landlords in the future? Yes, of course.
Absolutely.
The state that we live in, not where Mike invests, he does have a duplex there, is talking about crazy rules that will benefit landlords, that will make me richer. I hate saying words like that because it sounds super arrogant, but the House Bill 1388 came into Washington. It never made it out of committee. They were suggesting rent control, and rent control makes landlords stupid rich and makes renters homeless. So yeah, stupid laws, pay attention to them to see what's coming. There is a law in Seattle right now, not a law, rule, or whatever they put into the law. It's some code. Late fees can only be $10.
$10 a day.
Yeah, I'm more concerned with the illegal rifles now. You can't buy or sell rifles in Washington.
Yeah.
Learn to speak Mandarin. That's all I'm saying. How about you, Mike? Any laws coming down that you're concerned about?
Not where I'm at. No, not where I'm at all. That's one of the wonderful things about investing in the Midwest is it's, it takes me a couple of weeks to get an eviction. The judges don't play around. So long as as the landlord, you've done what you're supposed to, you posted notice and all this type of stuff, you're good. You get them out. If they don't pay, they don't, even the folks who went in there and even during the height of the pandemic issues where there was a lot of leeway being given, and I'm okay with extending leeway the way that the judge did it, which was, hey, if you're going to claim that this pandemic issue has caused you a hardship, you don't get to just claim that and do nothing. There's all of these programs. So you shall take action with this program by this date or you're out. And guess what? Oh, look at that. They took action with a program. Now we got the back pay. Now we got the rent moving forward. And that was just the final to get them to do the right thing. And sometimes that's what it takes. So, I mean, I'm all for that type of leeway, if you want to call it that, but not the type of eviction moratorium leeway that California and Seattle have, where it's like, you can't evict for any reason for a year and a half. Good luck.
Right. Somebody asks, where's my brother? Where the beer is cheaper than the water. He is here and flying back with me. And then he's headed to California. So I'm not sure if I'm going there or not. He is going to miss the beer. The beer here, well, at least in Portugal. I don't know about Germany because it was at the airport. It was expensive. But in Portugal, the beer is cheaper than the water. And another thing with my brother is he really dug his heels in and he was the American. Here's how they get you as an American. They have small beers and big beers. And most Americans buy the big beer because you want more, right? Well, it gets warm. The reason they serve small beer is because it stays cold. You drink it, you get the next one, it's cold. So he had a lot of big beer that got warm. There was another question here.
Yeah, I got one from John, Texas. He says, Millennial Mike, have you done a sub 2 deal? And are you in Pace Morby's class? Also, are your creative finance deals in Gary, Indiana? I'm not in Pace Morby's class. I like Pace Morby. I watch a lot of his videos. He's a really smart guy. I rewatched the video where he and Zuber did an interview from 2018, and I didn't realize that he's only been doing sub 2 since 2017. Because that's what he said in that interview. And I was like, wow, I just would have guessed he'd been doing it for like a decade or something. I don't know why, that's just what went through my head. But apparently not. Apparently he's, 5 years in, which good for him. Have I done a subject 2 deal? No, not yet. I'm looking for one. I'm actually trying to structure one right now. It's a possibility. I think that sub 2 is fantastic. But again, like seller financing, it's a numbers game. you throw it out there with everything you look at. And after you talk to 200 people, maybe you get one person who bites. And so I just am continuing to pursue that because I think subject to right now is a fantastic opportunity. And then are my creative finance deals in Gary? Yeah, I've got a couple seller finance deals. In fact, I'm working on a third seller finance deal. I've got a couple more on the pipeline right now, where I was emailing back and forth with somebody on a possible package deal. Seller financing, if you're not taking the time right now to get educated about subject to creative financing and seller financing, you're doing yourself a disservice. Lending, as I mentioned earlier, is one of the major problems that we're all experiencing. So unless you have cash like Dion to pay cash for a property, you're going to be stuck with lending. And you don't want that to be your only tool on your tool belt. You want to have other options to make deals more palatable and just to give you access to deals you might not have otherwise had an opportunity to go after. So absolutely learn creative finance.
There's a question here for both of us. And I lost it. Where'd it go? Ronnie, howdy. Dion or Mike, if you find a property that you like that doesn't cash flow at the asking price, do you make an offer where the property does cash flow? I actually do this constantly, but there's a missing metric in your question. Days on market. If something came out this morning and it doesn't cash flow, they want $1 million and it makes sense at $500,000. I'm not going to make a $500,000 offer the day that it came out, but I do watch properties, and once they've been on the market for 3 or 4 times longer than what was normal, and in our area in Washington, that's month and a half, 2 months. Once it hits that, I'll start making disrespectful offers like Bet David says. I will go. What was the last one that I just did? They wanted 1.25 and I offered 1. They came back at 1.2 and I offered 1. If they came back with anything else that wasn't 1, I was going to offer 950. And that was my number that made sense. It was on the market for over 2 months. The duplex that I'm looking at has been on the market for over a month, not quite 2 months yet. And the offer that I'm going to make will be about 90%, but I wouldn't do that in the first week. Generally, I have purchased properties above asking when it comes out. My numbers were higher than what they were asking. Make that offer right off the bat. So, Mike, would you make an offer if it doesn't cash flow at the asking price?
Yeah, but again, similar to you, I'm not going to do that on something that's been listed for just a short amount of time. I might. So a lot of times I get off-market properties brought to me, and I'll immediately respond with what I can pay. Because it's off market, and I'll just let my agent know to talk to their agent, or I'll let their agent know, or the wholesaler know, whatever. Like, yeah, my numbers don't work at this. If we can get the monthly payment to here, or if we can get the down payment to here, I don't usually argue on purchase price, because if I'm trying to structure a seller finance deal, I don't really care about the purchase price. I care about whether or not it's going to cash flow long term. I'll pay them whatever they want within reason, but almost whatever they want. I'd pay $1 million for $100,000 property if they let me buy it at $1 a month for the next 150 years. Like, what are the terms you're actually getting? Wow, how could you say you'd pay any purchase price? If they literally said we'll take $1 a month for the next 300 years, but it's going to equal $1 million at the end. Well, yeah, you'd be dumb not to do that deal, even though you're overpaying for the property, right? So there's obviously a break-even point. That's a hyper exaggerated scenario, but you could pay technically double for a property if you have, for whatever, a 0% interest rate. When you buy a property right now for $500,000, you don't spend $500,000 on it. That's what the seller is going to get, but you're going to pay the bank $800,000. So what does that mean? You could pay up to $800,000. You could overpay for the property and still spend the exact same amount, because once you factored in the interest on your loan, you're paying way more than what the purchase price actually says. So don't worry as much about the purchase price. If you want to invest for cash flow, which is how I invest, how Dion invests, how Zuber invests, how Matt invests. If you want to invest for cash flow, you care significantly more about the monthly payment. And I've made this argument to Crash Bros. This is my biggest argument to the Crash Bros when they say, hey, 2021 was a terrible time to buy. Everything was skyrocketing. From an affordability standpoint, in terms of what you paid monthly in your payment versus wages and interest rates, 2021 was actually the second best year to ever buy a rental property or any piece of real estate in the last 52 years. The only year that beat it was 2010. Yes, prices were going up. Things were being bid up $50,000 over asking, but you were getting a 3, sometimes a 2% interest rate. Your monthly payment was so low. That's why you could afford to pay more money. Now, when interest rates went from 2 to 7 or 3 to 7, great. Prices dropped $10,000 off of a $500,000 house, but your payment's still $1,000 more a month because your interest rates doubled. Congratulations, you played yourself.
There is a couple of questions here from Sam. And so I met with a local investor who was very knowledgeable and had a good conversation with her, but then suddenly she disappeared and doesn't answer the phone. What do you think is the reason? Is it realizing that I'm not adding value to her? So when you meet an investor and you watch content on YouTube like this, you see guys like Lumberjack, Zuber, Mike, me, Beth coming on here and just going, hey, here's our information. Let me brain dump and try to give you as much information as possible, but in a format that you can learn and retain and use it for something in your journey, right? So it seems like you questions, we give you answers. But you met an investor who's knowledgeable. And I don't give relationship advice, but let's associate this with dating. Guy or girl, you go on a date with somebody and you really like the person, and you've heard that people like people who can listen. So you ask questions and it turns into like a job interview. Tell me about yourself. What's your favorite music? Where did you grow up? Whatever the questions are, and you get this question and answer thing. That's exhausting for the person that you're trying to date. If you met an investor and you were expecting an investor to talk the way that we do in YouTube world, where we answer questions, happy to share information, and you just asked questions, they might have thought, this is exhausting. I don't want to pursue this. So when you meet an investor, instead of going, okay, I need a mentor, I don't want to pick your brain, I'm going to ask you all these questions, try to have conversations. Because I've talked about this before, and actually just did this in Christian and Cody's, mentorship class the other day. Marcus Sherrill is the financial firefighter in Hawaii, right? If I went to Mark and I said, hey, what does a firefighter do? Right, how do you answer that? He'd give me kind of this explanation. But if I go to Mark and I go, so you're a firefighter in Hawaii, what do you do all day? Just rescue cats from palm trees? Mark is going to give me a 20-minute diatribe on all of the things that a firefighter does, right? Because people don't want to talk and answer questions, but they like to disagree. So I'm not saying go and say things that she's going to disagree with, but if you talk to an investor, it has to be a two-way conversation. It's the closest I'll ever come to giving dating advice.
Master manipulator. That's why those relationships didn't work out.
No, but ending them was the best thing that's ever happened to me in my entire life.
Agreed.
All three of my kids go, really? And I said, yeah, really. They say, life is precious. And I'm saying, no. Something you can make on accident is not precious. I've never accidentally made a watch, right? Anyway, obviously it's 2:00 in the morning and the beer here in Portugal was cheaper than the water. REI Stoners, howdy. Sam, second question. Do you advertise your rentals on the MLS and you use the realtor for that? And how much does it cost per unit? So Mike, how do you advertise your rentals?
I've done it on Zillow, Craigslist, and Facebook Marketplace. And Craigslist has like a $10 fee. Zillow, I can't remember what their fee is. I think it's like $20. And I've never had any, I'll have 30 people show up in 2 days. And in fact, this one is about to go vacant over there. They're going to move out after 2 years, which is sad. But I think there was a breakup or something like that. So I don't know if they can hear me. But anyway, so I think they're going their separate ways, which fair enough. And I might actually try my first medium or midterm rental / short-term rental. I'm going to have to connect with Matt Gary, because he has a property in the same city as mine, which this city is an extremely popular wedding venue because we have a beautiful view of the mountain here, nice lake. And then there's 2 cities surrounding us. And in all 3 of those cities, there's not a single hotel, not one hotel. And so you can make a killing as an Airbnb person, especially living as close to the lake as I do, because if you want to stay, if you're going to get married out here or attend some event out here, you're 25-minute drive to the nearest hotel. So I might try my hat at the short-term rental game.
Nice. I wanted to. Beginning of 2022, I was hoping a tenant was going to move out because I wanted to do short-term rental on that unit. And the binder strategy was too effective, so I still have those tenants. And I'm having to suffer through just a bunch more money coming in.
From success.
Duplex Dave, Dividend Dave, howdy. Nice to see you guys split personalities there, talking to each other. Trying to think, I was advertise your rentals. So Sam, I use Hemlane. For a while I used apartments.com. I've not gone on the MLS because I don't know too many people who hunt for rentals that go to the MLS or go to an agent to find a rental. Most of them nowadays go to Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace, Zillow, Redfin, apartments.com. And I use Hemlane because it puts it on 30 different platforms by putting the information in once. The fee to use Hemlane is $28 plus $2 per unit. So as your portfolio grows, it'll grow by $2 per unit. To use their lowest tier, they have 3 tiers. The second tier lets you dispatch their handyman, kind of like an Angie's List kind of version of that. The first tier lets me collect rents, list my rentals on 30 platforms. What else can I do? There's something else that the first platform does. Oh, I can dispatch my handyman through it. And the second tier, you get their handyman. Third tier, you can have a leasing agent go out, show properties and sign leases. So I would use that. And the tiers cost more as you go up. It's on their website, just hemlane.com. If anybody decides to use Hemlane, use the code Dion, D-I-O-N, to get 20% off the first year. Right now I have 3 properties in it. And so what I'm not doing is going, I have 16 units. I'm on Hemlane now. Okay, all 16 units. You guys have to learn Hemlane. I've got this one tenant that still balances a checkbook, has a flip phone, doesn't use the interwebs, and I'm not going to make her learn this, right? But every time I have a tenant turnover or buy a new property with new tenants, I'm going to put them on the Hemlane platform, making it easier to travel and manage my properties. Some areas, the MLS might be the way to go. You need to, if you don't go with something like Hemlane that puts it on 30 different platforms, what is most used? If you're in a college town, it might be an app like Zumper or Rumor or Roomies or whatever the app is in that area that gets used the most. So try to find out, if you are a tenant looking for a property in that area, what's the platform you're most likely to use? As a landlord, that's the one I'd want to be on. RAS owners love the airport. Me too. I like them when they're open. Andy, howdy. Have you ever been in a situation where the rental listing in Zillow have the reasonable price, but every listing in Craigslist or Facebook has ridiculously low prices? I'll let you answer that first.
Sorry, I was reading another comment. What was the question?
Okay, no worries. So Andy, have you ever been in a situation where the rental listing in Zillow have the reasonable price, but every listing in Craigslist or Facebook has ridiculously low prices?
Oh, like have I ever seen people undercutting my stuff? Yeah, I mean, that type of stuff happens occasionally. And, if you can just avoid to list, I mean, if it's that far under market, then it's probably going to go really quickly if it's not just a fake ad, because there's a lot of scams that people run, hey, it's a super cheap property and we're going to take you. So then people are so excited, they just throw their money at it because they want to get into this great opportunity they found. And then they come to find out that that's not actually the real landlord and they lose their money. Those scams happen all the time. But yeah, I mean, occasionally you see something on there that's just way out of the ordinary and is extremely low, and I don't really sweat it that much. I know what my rent box is. I know what the values are in my area, and I set them at an extremely fair and competitive price. And if some person who bought their house 30 years ago and has been renting it out for $1,000 a month for 30 years, and they come on the market at $1,000 a month, then okay, great, that one will be gone. There's 45 people that are going to come to my unit, and I'll have 44 left after they take one.
Nice. Wandering Doc would like to know if we can give some marriage advice before we get to the other questions.
Oh, God.
Ironically, as a pirate minister, I do tend to give a lot of marriage advice. Part of the marriage ceremony is giving the new couple advice on how not to end up like the pirate minister. So, Andy, with the varying rents, if you find a lot of ads on Craigslist and Facebook Marketplace that are low, then Zillow is just overpriced. You have to figure out what the area average is. Mike made a good point of figuring out which ones are scams. And an example, and I wouldn't want to call somebody out by name, but when you list a property in Thurston County, Washington, Hometown Realty must be run by somebody mentally challenged, because they will put up, so I have 2 bedrooms that are getting $2,000 a month, 3 bedrooms that get $2,400 a month. They'll list a 4-bedroom house for $1,400 in a good area. with a fenced yard and parking, off-street parking. It'll go quick. They're just basically costing their people that own the property a ton of money. Don't know why. So every time that comes up in our area, like Mike said, you just wait, it goes quick. And once it's off the market, then you list your property. So if I have a property listing and theirs is up, I might hold back a day or two before I put mine out. So no, that's why you need to get a rent box, study your market for a couple of weeks to figure out what is listed that's too high, that sits and eventually comes down. What was listed too low, sits for a little bit, goes off market and comes back significantly higher because they got too much interest. Right? It takes a couple of weeks to get a figure out for what the rents should be in an area. And it doesn't hurt to take a week and list at the rents that you want and see what the level of interest is. Even if Facebook or Craigslist has different prices, there are people who just won't go to those platforms that might think whatever platform you're on is the only way to find a rental. And all they're going to see is the ones you're competing on that platform. Duplex Dave has a question. Have you started analyzing any small commercial 5 to 20 unit properties? And if so, how are you evaluating underwriting those deals? Mike?
Me? The only way that I would be able to do it would be a seller financing. Commercial lending is even worse than regular lending right now. It's worse for a lot of reasons. Some of the reasons are that you're not going to fix your debt for longer than 5 years. Your interest rate's going to be obscene. It's going to be over 10%. And there's so much coming pain. While I'm not usually for, let's wait to try to time the market. I think if you legitimately want to buy 5 to 20 unit buildings, yeah, you should be waiting to try to time the market. Because I watched a video on a YouTube channel where this lady went and interviewed at a big conference. She interviewed a bunch of commercial real estate syndicators, and they were all giving their spiel. Well, we've paused disbursements. We're shoring up capital. We're going to adjust the way that we approach purchasing assets right now. All of that is translatable into we're screwed and we're trying as hard as we can to keep our head above water right now, but we don't want to show that there's blood in the water and then entice the sharks. And I wrote a comment in the video saying exactly that. Like, you can see it in their eyes. This is fear. It's going to be very ugly. Don't give them any more of your money. And that comment got deleted off that video within like 20 minutes of me posting it. And I was like, well, that's a little telling right there. So am I interested in those types of properties? Absolutely. Right now, they'd have to be seller financed. I would have to get pretty good terms. Otherwise, I'll just keep looking in the 2 to 4 unit market. And then if I was going to use commercial lending, it would have to be after the crash in those assets occurred so that prices came down so much that it made sense for me to do it. Like, I'm hoping people are losing those properties back to the bank or back to whatever, and then I'll be able to go in there and make sense of awful lending because prices are down.
So looking at 9 to 20 units, I would be waiting for the foreclosures to flood the market with REO owned, because loan reevaluation periods are hitting now with rates adjusting, and not everybody's going to have the ability to refinance or cut the big check to bring their, it's not the NOI, it's they want a 1.1 ratio. Your debt service coverage ratio is not going to be good enough, so they can't write that check. So there's going to be foreclosures in that part of the market. But from 5 to 8, I am looking at them and I underwrite them exactly how I do my 1 to 4s because of the loan options that are out there through Velocity Mortgage and Convoy Home Loans. They have up to 8 units, 30 or 40 year fixed rate DSCR loan. So it's not commercial, it's DSCR. So the debt service coverage ratio will cover it. So your credit score matters, your work history, your debt to income ratio doesn't matter. They're going to look at the properties. You might find people who are in distress because of the adjustment to interest rates, and most people in that asset class from 5 to 20 do have commercial loans where they have adjustable rates and loan reevaluation periods. So you might find a motivated seller. I'm looking at those. I'm not actively pursuing it, so I haven't set up a bunch of searches, and I'm not doing what Cody and Christian do of going out and trying to find the owners through tax records or driving for dollars or any of those creative ways that you can actually find more deals than what I'm looking for. But I do have my searches set up on the MLS, and I will look at up to 8 units exactly the same as I'll look at duplex, triplex, and fourplex because of those loan options. And Mike did say that the interest rate's worse. I think the last interest rate I was quoted was 9%, but you could buy it down to about a 7.5 for several points. So yes, I'm considering those, but haven't found the ones. I've made offers on a few. I haven't had them any action on those yet. If I can make 1 million with no risk, sure, I'd get married. Still not worth it.
You mean if you can make 500,000, and then after you pay those attorney fees and legal fees and taxes, you really just
alimony, palimony, spousal support, child daycare, all the no.
250,000 max. So, nah, it ain't worth it.
Yeah. Mike, shot at this week, Rob?
No, not this week. Thanks, Rob. Thanks for checking in.
Dividend Dave, would you get married for $1 million?
That's 500,000.
Right, because they get the other half.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of, honestly, because everything has a price. No matter what you say, I won't do it. You put a 10 billion on the front of it, certain things become possible.
Obviously.
But 5 million for marriage? No. Maybe 10 million, but I doubt it.
I would for 5 million, I would get married and get divorced the next day, give her half and just be done with it. Be like, all right, I got married for 2.5 million. And then I'm done.
I just can't.
Some sort of like, am I obligated to stay? That wasn't part of the question.
I can't stand the idea of looking at somebody and thinking, I hate you so much, I want to get the government involved in our relationship. So I'll pass. Let's see a question. Dion, so Rob, howdy. What have you done this week to embarrass your brother? This video, I talked about him several times. So if he ever watches this, he's not going to be happy. He's also sitting over there. We too much of an overshare. For most of our stay here, we stayed at nice hotels. The last week, we wanted the hostel experience. And it was an experience. At the end of it, I realized we probably should have just done hostels the whole time we were here, for a list of reasons. Millennium Mike, I'll marry him for free right now. Nice.
Oh, dude, for sure. Like, I'd marry you, Dion.
Of course. Oh, man. That's the whole. It's one of those things where you go, you wish you could be gay because they just think that relationship just seems better.
No, I'll make the prediction right now. I seriously will make this prediction. I'm willing to bet that there will be men who marry their business partner, best friend they start a company with for purely financial reasons. Like, just because it makes sense. Why not? If you're never going to get married, you made that decision because it's not safe. Yeah. Oh, great. You tell me I can save some money by marrying my best friend that I'm in business with? Sure. Why not? What do I care?
Hypothetically, I may know some veterans who are as straight as you get that are married. Because one's at 100% disability and the other one gets all of the benefits from the spouse being at 100% disability rating.
People do it to get citizenship. Yep. I know lots of people who have done it to, just they were good friends, and like, hey, can you help me get my, sure, and well, I mean, shoot, save some more money. Over a lifetime.
REI Stoners, I asked my agent to make a seller finance offer the other day on an 8-plex on market for over 60 days. Long shot, but at least the offer is there. And that makes sense to me. Let us know how it goes. That sounds cool. Ronnie asks if either one of us are using DSCR loans. I'll let you answer first.
Nope, never used a DSCR loan. And again, I don't understand. It's not that I don't understand a DSCR loan. It's all of the traditional lending right now is not as good as seller financing. So if I can get a deal with seller financing or a subject to deal, it's better for me to divert my energy there. Because I mean, like, the terms on the deal that I just got up under contract was 10% down, 4% interest rate, 30-year fixed. There's nothing anywhere close to that right now. So if I'm going to divert time and energy and talking and negotiating and pursuing a deal, I'm going to pursue it's sort of the exact same reason why I started investing at a distance. It's way too expensive for me to buy another house right here in Seattle. Well, okay, maybe I'll buy something in the middle of the state, 3 hours away where it's cheaper. Well, shoot, if I'm going to go 3 hours away, why not just go 3,000 miles away and pick the best cash flowing market that I can find? What the heck do I care? So yeah, I haven't pursued that because it's just better for me to look at seller financing.
All of my current loans and everyone I've had so far has been a conventional loan, and the property's been from the MLS. I have made DSCR loan offers with properties. I was looking at, some 5 to 8 units when Convoy Home Loans came out with their product for 30 or 40-year fixed rate DSCR loans. Didn't get the properties. I made a 50-40-10 offer that almost, like, we were, I want to say almost under contract because we had an accepted offer, and then something changed on the seller side. And that would have been a DSCR for the 50 through Velocity Mortgage with 40 carried by the seller and then 10% from me. So not currently, I'm open to it though, but the duplex I'm looking at that I might get if I decide to not get a primary, it's going to be a conventional loan, 25% down. Again, different ways of doing this. Sean. I bought a single family home in October 2015. The seller replaced the AC unit. In August of 2015, I converted the garage into a bedroom. I believe the AC unit needs replacing. Should it still be covered under warranty? There's no way to know that without knowing the warranty that company offered. And remember, every warranty out there, the company that offers the warranty has a division of employees whose job it is to make sure you don't get paid. So be ready to make the expense yourself, but can't hurt to check. The wealth building journey. If marriage isn't good enough for Jeff Bezos or Bill Gates. Exactly. I will say this last thing on marriage. And
we're getting into the weeds.
Last thing, and we'll get back into real estate. In a half a century, my entire life, I have never met a happy couple. Not one. Not yet. And so I want you to think, if you've met me, I mean you. Andy, if I've been a tenant for a while, would it be a good idea to copy the lease agreements I've had with the apartment complex I've been a tenant for my single family house, or are apartments different than single family houses? When I first started renting, I reached out to a friend who has 30 rentals and was running a real estate brokerage. And I said, hey, can I get a copy of your lease? And the Frankenstein, hodgepodge, multiple copied, weird angled, hard to read crap that came showed me that leases don't matter to most investors. They matter to me. So I don't know that I would copy the one from your apartment, but if you do, I do suggest taking this one extra step. Find an eviction attorney in your area. I retained one, right? So that's the level of relationship I wanted with the attorney. You might not have to do that. Maybe we'll have just a consultation. But I retained them and I asked, is there any verbiage that you can give me to put in my lease that will make your job easier, just in case we ever go through an eviction together? And they gave a couple of suggestions. That's actually something I learned from my brother, who told me to do that like 3 years ago. So I've done it ever since. So however you get your lease, whether it's from BiggerPockets has a lease made by an attorney for every state, apartments.com and Zillow both have leases available. I think Hemlane has a lease available. Mike and I both got our leases from a source that doesn't exist anymore. There used to be in Washington State, there was a landlord tenant resource page. So we got our leases, and now that's not there. I took that lease and I added the verbiage from the attorney. The thing that would matter to me is make sure it's a lease from your area, because all in different areas, the rules are completely different. REI Stoners, I'd have my lawyer draw up papers so she didn't get half. I call official BS. Okay, we got to get off the marriage.
We're getting into the weeds. Listen, look, Zuber did a legendary ladies and real estate investing thing. Apparently, we need to do a for the boys episode because
if we did one and we had the thumbnail and the title and literally and everything said, look, this is going to be about this kind of stuff, we'd get the right people. Right?
We're not even talking about real estate. We're apparently just going to all show up to complain about marriage. That's it. That's all we're going to do.
All right, I'm going to skip the marriage ones. These are some good. I'm going to read them later, but I'm going to skip them now. Duplex Dave, when you negotiate seller finance terms in your example in the 4% fully amortized like a conventional loan, who draws up the loan terms? A real estate attorney. So I'll let you answer because you actually have an example.
Yeah, so you don't have to have a real estate attorney draw it up. People really overcomplicate the process of buying real estate in a big way. It is literally just as simple as you and I, Dion and I, saying, hey, Dion wants to sell or finance me a house. He and I could talk about the terms. Are you okay with me paying 10% down, 30-year amortization, 5% interest rate? If he says yes, boom, handshake, we can go down to a title company together. The title company is going to have contracts for all of this type of stuff on hand. And you just say, hey, we've agreed to these terms. And yeah, they're going to get some signatures right there and get you taken care of. It really is that simple. I have a contract that when I release my course, one of the free giveaways is going to be my seller financing purchase agreement I've used to buy multiple different real estate deals. That's going to be like hey, here's the free thing you get that I spent $500 for to have drawn up by an attorney. But I made sure that the attorney didn't just give me the PDF version. I made him give me the Word document version so that every time I want to just swap out the freaking purchase price and address and interest rate, I can do it without paying more money to him. You don't have to have anybody professional write down the terms for you. Now, when it comes to actually doing the official purchase agreement, again, that's why I say you want the title company to step in at that point, because whatever document, the way it needs to be written for your local state or city, they'll take care of making sure that that's done properly. But your agreement between the two of you, you could quite literally pull out a piece of paper, write down your terms, your sale price or whatever, sign it, they sign it. That's officially a contract. That's enough to get the process going and the ball rolling.
Sorry, I was answering a question here that pops up next. First, REI Stoner said, hey, not BS to your statement, BS to the fact that would ever stand up in court.
Yeah.
Like the majority of prenups are tossed out because they were signed under duress. But there was a question here, which locks do I use? There's the Amazon link. I use Schlag coded locks in all of my rentals. They're all Class C. There's one like B-, but my tenants like having locks without keys. So I've never had a tenant lockout ever. And I have 2 exterior doors. So I put those locks in each door because the odds of both sets of batteries dying in anywhere around the same amount of time, and they actually make a really weird noise when the battery does start to die. And I have a current test going on at my unit where over 3 years now, same batteries, but in my leases, tenants are supposed to exchange them every year. So those are the ones that I use. And that was to Shred. Thank you. And there's a bunch more of the relationship stuff I'm going to skip. Wandering Doc. Dion, can you elaborate on people in Portugal being rude and generally unhappy, and has this influenced your decision to buy property there? Yes, so I'm absolutely not buying property here. And the people are, I'd say 90% of the reason. I'm in Germany now, but in Portugal, I'm not buying because it's not that they're just sad that they're unhappy. They're bitter. They don't make eye contact. They don't talk, flat out ignore you. I am not a people person, so I wasn't going to buy there because I want to be around a bunch of people, but I don't want to be around rude people either. There was a couple of other reasons. I'm doing an interview with Business Insider on Friday, and that'll come out probably by the weekend or by early next week on like the laundry list of reasons why I'm ending up not buying there. So what I'm choosing to do is invest for cash flow and then use that cash flow instead of buying in a foreign country, use that cash flow to pay for the Verbos and Airbnbs in those other countries. And Wandering Doc, I'm trying to think, I've said this earlier in the video, but it's a country that celebrates sadness and longing, and you're actually considered rude if somebody's in a bad mood and you try to cheer them up, because they have to experience their entire bad mood to ever experience happiness. It's the way they tried to explain it to me. I didn't get it. Hang on. Oh, RA Stoners. Oh, yes. There you go. We have met.
What'd you say, Dion?
Yep. Wandering Doc. I've decided to move to Seville area in Spain for 3 to 6 months as a home base. From this October, Portugal is now off my list because of what you said about the people. So if you do go to Portugal, In the winter, the Algarve has probably got really nice weather. The beaches are great. And I say, if you come forewarned that the people are just like clones of the servers in Gary, Indiana, the average individual in Portugal, you might have a better experience if you know that coming here. I didn't expect it. I've traveled to Colombia where you literally go into a restaurant, you're having dinner, music starts, and everybody just dances because you're at a restaurant. You might as well dance. And you go to Thailand, and Scott sent me the article talking about that saudade or saudade term in Portugal where you embrace the longing or whatever it is. The article literally said, "This ain't no Thailand." They are right. I think we're probably going to be wrapping up there unless there's any questions that come up on real estate, financial freedom. We covered the 3 mistakes at the beginning of this video that landlords make, investors make, that can delay or stop you from reaching financial freedom. Covered a couple of other ones since then. Closing thoughts, Mike.
Learn seller financing, make disrespectful offers, look at your market every single day. If a good deal comes on, it's going to go very quickly because there's a lot of people that are looking. And when something good pops up, other people are doing their due diligence as well. So it's still competitive. Don't do a deal just because you want to do a deal. Like, don't compromise your standards. Obviously, that's a bad idea. I think that there's definitely going to be opportunity in the commercial space, like we talked about earlier, for those larger ones. And so it's a great opportunity to learn seller financing now on a smaller deal so that you're a little more prepared moving forward. Thanks to everybody for being here. Always appreciate being able to chat with everybody. It's fun. And Dion, thanks for having me on.
Nope, I appreciate you being here. My last closing thoughts before I close this down for the evening where you are. It's 3:00 in the morning here. Never take relationship advice from 2 single dads, right?
Don't do it.
Take investing advice from people who are reaching financial freedom, making work optional, and doing it with a strategy that would work for you. But avoid the relationship advice. Until my next video, thanks for coming to my Dion Talk.